Welcome back to Mr. Wicklam's virtual classroom, where we're continuing in our measurement unit. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be exploring perimeter, and we're going to look at the perimeter of circles and irregular shapes. So irregular means that they're just not ordinary, like rectangles, squares, things of that nature. Just to review, first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what perimeter is. So from yesterday, you guys will remember that perimeter is the measurement of the outside of a shape. So for instance, if we're looking at our desks or we're looking at a table, we would measure the outside of it. Okay, and one thing I want to draw your attention to is at the bottom. So at the bottom down here we have a base, what's known as a base. And so, you know, as anything, you kind of build on the base. So the base is always usually near the bottom. That's going to help you out when you get into your second page and you get into the toothpicks, and it asks and it shows you what the base is. The base is at the bottom, so it's the input, because what happens is you always start there. So the base is the input. You start at the base and you build your way up. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to find out what the perimeter is. So each edge, because an edge just represents from here to here, right? The side is the whole thing. So each edge is 1 centimeter. So you have 1, 2, so this side is 2 centimeters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centimeters. 1, 1, 2, so this side is 2 centimeters. 1 centimeter, 1, 2, 3, and 3 centimeters. And then if you remember from yesterday, what we do is we just add all these up and we figure out what the perimeter is. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 5 is 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 centimeters. Okay, so perimeter isn't that hard, but what we're going to be doing today is we're going to take a look at how we can find perimeter of rectangles without knowing what one of the sides is. Okay, so Bob buys 12 meters of fence to make a rectangular garden. Okay, so he's making a rectangular garden. This is it right here. So he's got all his little, crops planted in there, carrots and corn, as you can see, in nice neat rows like Mr. Wicklam just drew. So Bob has a garden. He buys 12 meters of fence. Okay, so first thing what we want to do is we want to point out that the widths, so you do have two sides of this perimeter. The widths add up to 2 meters. Okay, and so what we need to find are the missing lengths. So we need to find what this is and what this is. Okay, so we know Bob buys 12 meters of fence so he can make his garden. So we know the perimeter is 12 meters because that's how much fence Bob buys. Okay, because he wants to box in his garden. So we can start with 12 meters, or the perimeter, and we can subtract the width, which is 2 meters, and what we end up with is we end up with the missing length. So 12 minus 2 is 10 meters. Now we have two lengths, 1, 2. So that's why I have written down here each length is, well, we know that when we add both lengths, it comes to 10 meters, just like what we did when we added up the two widths. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to do 10 meters, and we're going to divide it by 2 because we have two lengths. 10 meters divided by 2 equals 5 meters. So each length is 5 meters. So Bob's garden is going to be 5 meters in length, 1 meter in width. Okay, so that's his rectangle. That's his garden. That's how you figure out how to find missing lengths or widths. It's the same process. Perimeter minus width or length will give you what's missing. Divide by 2 because rectangles have two pairs of equal sides, and you're good to go. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to find the widths and the lengths of all the rectangles using the perimeter given. Okay, so what we have here is we just have a little chart, Okay, so what if my width is 1 centimeter? Okay, so if my width's 1 centimeter, I have 14 units. Okay, so 14 centimeters. So I guess we're not really using centimeters, just using units. So if my width is 1, because I know I have 2 sides, that would give me 2 for the total width, just like I did up here. You add them together, right? So if I know that my width is 2, and I know my total units are 14, how much can I possibly have for the length? Well, 14 minus 2 gives me 12. And like I did up here, I divide by 2 because I need to find each length, not just the lengths altogether. So what I want to do is I want to find each one. So I have 12. If I divide by 2, then each length is 6. So you have 1 and 6, because if I do 6 times 2, that's going to give me 12. 12 plus 2 equals 14. So I know that each length, so if I do it like this, 1, there's my length, so if I add that all up, 1 plus 1 plus 6 plus 6, 1, 2, 2 plus 6 is 8, 9, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So when my width is 1, my length is 6, I end up with 14. Okay? Is there any other ones that we can use? Well, there is. So what if we start with a width of 2? So 2 times 2 will give us what? 4. Then, so there it is, 2. And I know my other one is 2. Now I need to find what the missing lengths are going to be. Okay, sorry about Mr. Wickham's straight line there. But let's find out what the missing lengths are going to be. 14 minus 4, because remember, perimeter minus the width gives us all together how much the lengths are. We want to know what each length is. So 14 minus 4 gives me 10. Okay? 10 divided by 2 gives me 5. So each length is going to be 5. 5 times 2 gives me 10. 10 plus 4 is 14. Now, is there any other ones we could use? Well, let's go up to 3. So 3 times 2 gives me 6. So here's 3. I know it's right here. So when I look over, I have a width 3 and 3. So that gives me the 6. 14 minus 6 is 8. And 8 divided by 2, remember, because I need to find out what each length is. 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. 4, and I put 4. Okay, because 4 times 2 gives me 8. 8 plus 6 gives me 14. That's all you need to do. So when it asks you to find the widths and the lengths of a perimeter using so many units, start with 1. Always start with 1 with your width, move up to 2, move up to 3. Always try to do that, because if you start with 1, you're probably guaranteed to going to find your length. Now what if something was, notice how all these numbers work out: even number, even number, even number, even number, even number, even number. If something was 7 units, because each side, each pair of sides needs to be equal. If it was 7 units, we could never do that, because you would start with 1, and then if you were using whole numbers, which we are using, you could never have enough whole numbers. Okay, so that's kind of exploring perimeter. And like I said, if you flip to the next page, what you're going to be doing is asked to be giving an input and an output. And so what the input is that, and I'm just going to do one quickly down here. So if you had this, these are kind of like the toothpicks that they're using. So and this is the base right here, right down here at the bottom. That's the base. So I'm just going to put input, output. Okay? So what that means is that when we have an input, which is the base, so how much is in the base? How many popsicle sticks? That would be 1. So when we have 1 as an input, we can build and we can use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 is the perimeter. Okay, so the output is the perimeter. Now what if we change that and we have a base of 2? So your input's 2. And so what happens is your perimeter is going to change. 1, 2, so this is the base down here at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So your perimeter becomes 8. Okay? I'm going to let you continue on with that, but that is how you start that problem, and it's number 5 on the next page. And then I'll allow you just to finish the rest of that page yourself, because you should be able to know how to do that. So the output again is the perimeter. Okay? The input is the base which is at the bottom, and then the output is just the total perimeter. Okay? And we're going to move on to something that's going to be a little bit different, and it's circles and irregular shapes. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at irregular shapes. Now this is one that is in your book. Okay? We're going to do question A. I'm going to walk it through with you, so then you know exactly what you're doing. If you take a look over here, when I go diagonally from here to here, okay, or from here to here, which is a better example, that is 1.4 centimeters. Okay, that's what the workbook tells us. So when we go diagonally, 1.4. When we go across, that's just 1. Okay, just 1 centimeter. So what you need to do is you need to be able to find the perimeter using the numbers that are given. So this is 1.4 because it's on a diagonal. And this is 1, and this is 1, so this whole side is going to equal 2. 1, 2, 3. Right? Because just from dot to dot is 1 centimeter. 1, 2. And then we can add it up all together. So if I add it up, I have 2, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm just adding up all my whole numbers. 8, 9, 10, and decimal 4 plus decimal 4. So let's do this. 5, 6, 7, 8. So we know we have 8 plus 1.4 plus 1.4. And you got to line it up like that because the decimals need to line up together. 4 plus 4 is 8. And 1, 2, and 8 is 10.8 centimeters is the perimeter. Okay? So all we're doing is we're looking at irregular shapes, and you just need to know what the distance is between the diagonal. That's it. And we know that. The book tells us that it's 1.4 centimeters. Okay? So, last thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at circles, and we're going to look at a term called circumference. Okay? So circumference basically is the distance around the outside of a circle. So for instance, if you were looking at this flashlight, that's right here, and we wanted to find what the circumference is of this part right here, okay, or actually we'll use the base right down here. We want to find out what the circumference of this is. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to go around the outside of the flashlight. So what I'll do is you take a piece of paper, you have your starting point. So sticky notes are great for this, by the way, because then you can just stick it right on. So you wrap it around your flashlight. You get it good and tight. Okay, and then that gives me, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a line because I can see underneath where my paper starts. So I mark a line, and then I know from where my paper started, which was right here, this is it right there, my paper started to where my line is, and then what I do is I measure. So I measure what the circumference is. So I go from the edge of the paper and I go to here, and it's 8.9 centimeters. So the circumference of this, the outside of the base of my flashlight, is 8.9 centimeters. Now, what you're also going to notice is that you're going to notice that there is a width. Okay? So the width is basically when you take a circle, and what you're going to do for width is you're going to measure from side to side. Okay, so from here over to here. Well, if I measure from side to side, the width of this flashlight is, see, the width of this is 2.3 centimeters. So I have a circumference of 8.9 centimeters and I have a width of 2.3 centimeters. Now, there is always a relationship between the circumference and the width. Okay, there's always a relationship between the two. So what I want to do is if I divide 8.9 and 2.3, what I will get is a number, and because I've done it, I get a number that equals 3.14, or close to it. And so what happens is when you divide the circumference by the width, you should get this number all of the time, okay? Because the circumference is always 3 times greater, okay? That's what that means, that it's 3 times bigger, right? So if you had 9 and you had 3, it would be 3 times bigger. So what that means is that there's a term that you probably have heard of, and it's a term called pi, P-I. And what we do is when we divide the circumference by the width, that relationship there, that is always 3.14 times greater, we call that relationship, or that number, pi. And that number pi represents the relationship or the ratio between the circumference and the width. So when I divide the two, I should get 3.14, because when you're dealing with circles, you measure the outside edge, so you go all the way around for circumference, but for the width you just go across. You just go across the circle like this. So circumference, you go all the way around, and then what you're doing for width is you're just going from here to here. Okay, and then that difference, so if you want the difference, what it is it's 3.14, and that's what we call pi. Okay, now that I've made you hungry, my favorite kind of pie is coconut cream. This is Mr. Wicklum signing off.